It's Nala and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be all about books. It's going to be my book recommendations video, and we're going to be setting up my new bookshelves. I am so excited to be filming this video, and if you told me last year that I would be filming a book video on my channel, I probably would literally laugh at you, but I am so excited that I'm filming a book video and that I actually have enough books and I've read enough books to film a book video now. So this is just going to be episode 1. I plan on just doing multiple episodes on my channel, continuing on however long I read. I just bought some new bookshelves from Walmart. They're like super cheap. They're like $30, but they look really good. And for right now, I just wanted a small little investment in my book journey now that I'm starting off into reading. That way I can separate my physical TBR and then what I already have read onto my bookshelves, and then we can talk about some of my book recommendations that I want to offer you guys. So let's just get right into this video. So before we get into this video, let me just explain a couple things. So like I said, I bought those bookshelves, and for me personally, if you're new to my YouTube channel, you do not know this about me, but I was not a reader whatsoever. You would never ever catch me picking up a book in my entire life, but now I'm finally into reading, and I am more into the romance novels and thriller. So that's kind of the genres that I'm in, and I'm also trying to incorporate some self-help and psychology and business books, but I haven't started doing that yet, so you're not going to see those in this video, but those are the genres that I typically aim for. And with my books, I am very specific. I like to always have a physical TBR, and everything has to be physical. Even if I listen to it in an audiobook, I have to buy a physical trophy, because for me, reading is already so difficult. I'm a quote-unquote average reader, I would say, but definitely not fast. And because I never used to read, when I do read a book, I definitely need a trophy of it to feel accomplished. So if I read an audiobook, I'm gonna buy the physical trophy eventually. I separate it by the read and then my TBR on my bookshelf. So that's the plan for today. I don't have that many books. Like I said, I'm just starting out my journey, so this is not even going to be close to filled up my bookshelf, but I'm excited to make it all cute with you guys. I have some cute little trinkets to put on there too. And yeah, let's just get right into this video. Okay guys, let me show you first my new bookshelves, which I'm so in love with. Like I said, they're kind of cheap, so would I recommend them if you're first starting off reading and you just need a cheap investment to put your books on? Absolutely. But if you're looking for like a nice sturdy piece for a very long time, probably not. But for $30, this is literally a 5-shelf bookshelf, and it's gorgeous. So let me quickly show you. So here it is. I just put my iPad right here really quick. It's really tall. Like, it's actually so much taller than I thought it was gonna be, because I ordered it on Walmart pickup and I only saw it online. It's literally massive for $30. So the backing is like a particle board, so that's why I was saying it's kind of more of a cheaper material, because the back is not really constructed with it. It's like you nail the particle board to the back. But outside of that, this exact one is on Amazon for $70. This exact one. So this is literally perfect if you have Walmart near you, and each shelf holds 50 pounds. So like I said, definitely would recommend if you're looking for a pretty basic bookshelf, and it's perfect for the space that I'm in. So this is what we're working with. And obviously I'm not gonna fill this all up. Probably not even gonna fill up 3 shelves. Moving on to the books. So I made like kind of little piles of how I wanna do it. So right now, these are all the books that I've read, which we'll get into when I do the book recommendations. And then I have, like I said, a couple of like trinkets and stuff that I wanna throw on there when I'm decorating the bookshelf. And then these 2 piles are my physical TBR. I do restrict myself from filling up my physical TBR. So that's why you're not seeing like a bunch of books, because I'm not the kind of person to fill up my bookshelf of my physical TBR. I rather have my bookshelf filled up with books that I read. So I'm only gonna have a limited amount of books that I have not read, if that makes sense, and kind of fill it up as I go on my reading journey. Because I know most people, like on BookTube and everything, their bookshelves are actually filled with books that they can pick off of like their physical TBR. Some people do it some ways. It doesn't doesn't really matter. But I just don't want to fill it up with too many books because I'm a slow reader. Then I have like these little, like I said, trinkets. This was like an Inside Out plushie that I got. This was like a little Lego thing, a strawberry shortcake. And then like my Bibles, my journal, my Bible journals. I have these bookends. And then this pile over here is my currently reading. So these two are actually library books that I have out. And the way that I do this is that for books that I'm not 100% sure about, I will read it from the library, and then if I like it, I will buy a physical trophy of it for myself. And then this book, I have this, like I bought this book and I'm just trying to finish it. We're gonna organize all of this on these 5 shelves, and I think I'm just gonna do some B-roll footage of that, and then we can move on to some of the book recommendations, my ratings, and everything for what I've currently and recently read. So roll to the bookshelf decorating. Okay, you guys, I'm so excited to show you my final bookshelf. Are you guys ready for the bookshelf reveal? In 3, 2, 1. It looks so good, especially for the limited books that I did have. I looked on Pinterest like for a couple of ideas on how to spread out books, and it just looks so much better than just doing like the normal lineup. It looks so cute. So let me just explain to you what I did really quickly. Up here on this top shelf, here's all the books that I've read, and these are the books that we are going to be touching on towards the end of this video for the book recommendations. Then I have my little heart plushie, which I think this is like an imitation of the Jellycat one, which I want to get a lot more Jellycats. I have 2 on my bed, but my mom actually got me this one. It's so cute, and it looks perfect on my bookshelf. I love her so much. And then these are the books that I'm currently reading. I try to only read like 2 at a time, but I took out 2 from the library. And then this is the second book to A Thousand Boy Kisses from Tilly Cole. And then I'm actually reading 2 audiobooks as well from my library. So that is the first shelf. And then I also have these little white bookends as well. On my second shelf, which is probably one of my favorites, I stood them all up to take up this shelf. And also another reason being is because I read a lot of dark colored books so far. I haven't gotten to a lot of like cute covers on my TBR list. Like I have a lot of cute covers, but just I have so many on my TBR list, like 70 books on my TBR. And I've actually read a lot of like Never Lie, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Verity, all this stuff. They're all darker colors. So I wanted to take the colorful and cute covers that I did have and fan them out and display them, just because I have a limited books right now. So for this shelf, I have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, The Summer of Broken Rules by Kayla Walther, The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, and then the beginning of the Chestnut Spring series. This is a 5-book series, and I haven't started any of these, so this is also still my physical TBR, but I only have the first 2 books so far. So I don't like buying full series without at least reading like the first 2 books to see if I like it, because if I don't like it, then I just wasted all my money. So I wanted to just buy the first 2, and then I have my little disgust character over here. Then my third shelf, I have the rest of my physical TBR. I have The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, They Both Die at the End, Silvera. These are actually older books that I bought when I wasn't even into reading, but I need to get through this. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, We Were Liars, which I've tried to read so many times, and I almost think I'm going to DNF this one because I just can't seem to get through it. The Inheritance Games, which is also a 5-book series, and I only bought the first one. This one seems very, very interesting, and I just love the cover. It just looks so intriguing, so I stood this one up too in the middle of the stack. And then I have The Housemaid's Secret, which is the second one in the Housemaid series. I heard that the third one, The Housemaid is Watching, is just kind of unnecessary, so I don't even think I'm going to read that one, but I do have that one. And then I have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. And then I just have this little like pink vase from I think Five Below to hold the books up. And then my little embarrassment character from Inside Out. And then this little artificial plant. And then my last shelf, I just have my iPad in my case, this little Lego set of strawberry shortcake that I built, and then my Bible journals and my Bible. That way I can reach it pretty quickly in the morning. But I am so incredibly in love with how it turned out. And this just gives me so much happiness to see how my book journey is turning out, and it just makes me so, so happy. So here she is in all of her glory. But moving on to the final portion of this video, which is the book recommendations, we're going to be going over the 6 books that I have read recently. Like I said, I am a kind of slow reader. I don't want to say slow. I think like I read like 40 pages an hour. So it's like kind of average, kind of on the slow side, but still definitely not a fast reader. And then also life just happens. Like if you just don't have the time to read all the books that you want, you're not going to be able to get through a bunch of books. But 6 books to be going over in a video is massive for me, considering I was never even a reader in the first place. I would not even read one book in an entire year. So to be going over 6 books with you guys is kind of insane anyways. I'm going to pop up a picture of the book that we're talking about, and we're going to talk about the rating and just what I thought about the book. So my system is I track everything on Goodreads. I mentioned this in plenty of videos. I am a Goodreads lover. There is some things that definitely could be tweaked. It's a pretty old app, and there's not many I don't want to say functions, but options. Like it's a very simple app, but that's also what I love about it. On Goodreads, you can friend people, and then you can look at a bunch of reviews for books. It's pretty much just like a bunch of Amazon reviews, but for books. That way you can know if you want to read a book ahead of time. You can see the amount of stars the book has. You can see when it was published, all of this stuff. Then on your Goodreads account, you're gonna have 2 shelves that are already gonna be pre-made for you, which is either want to read or read. And pretty much in those 2 shelves, you can just fill up a bunch of books. So once you go on, you can pick a book that you want to read under the Discover page, and you can add it to your want to read or your TBR. And then while you're reading it, it will move to your currently reading. So you want to mark your dates that you're reading it on your app, and then it will actually update your progress by % of the book once you input the page that you're on. And then when you're done, it'll move to your read bookshelf on your app. And then you can either just do the amount of stars you gave it, or you can give it a review. I always give them full reviews just because I love to read reviews. I always find them extremely helpful when picking books, especially books I know nothing about. So I have like 70 books in my want to read. By the way, you can also see what your friends are doing too, their activity, their want to read, their read, and there's a yearly goal. So for 2025, I set my yearly goal to 25 books, and so far I've already read 1 book, and I'm about to finish my 2nd book. That's what's nice, is that you can also track your yearly goals as well. So let's go over my book recommendations for you guys for episode 1. Okay, so I'm gonna go in order of read like furthest away. So my first book that I read when I was getting back into reading was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I gave this a 3-star. So I'm gonna read my review. Okay, sorry guys, my camera SD card filled up, but I'm going to read my review. I said, it was okay. I feel like it was extremely overhyped on TikTok, which might be why it was underwhelming. I feel like it was a little too long to get to the point, and the letters to Ellen got annoying after a while. Definitely some trigger warnings and some spice I didn't know about. Overall, didn't love the book, but I absolutely want to read some more from Colleen Hoover to see if this style translates to the rest of her books. So It Ends With Us was my first Colleen Hoover book that I did read, and I'm not going to give any spoilers in this video, but I will explain it a little bit. So I know for this book specifically, since it's such a popular book, this opinion might be very, very controversial since so many people love it. I actually loved the movie so much more than I liked the book, and so many people hate the movie and love the book. So that was just my experience, but that was also the first book that I got back into reading, and I hated reading at that time. So that could have also been it. But this followed a girl named named Lily. It kind of like went back and forth from her present to her past, and she ended up meeting this guy named Ryle. Everyone was on Team Ryle, which I don't even understand, to be honest with you. I was absolutely Team Atlas. I don't even understand how you could not be Team Atlas. Even people close to me, it was like, oh, I'm Team Ryle. Don't even understand how that could even be possible based off the events, but we won't even get into that. But there's also a lot of trigger warnings, which I found in Colleen Hoover's books. In most of them, there's some kind of trigger warning, and it's just like very heavy. Could be emotionally or just like heavy, especially for my age group, which for me just takes away from like the actual cuteness of the book. Like, I'm someone who loves like to giggle when I read a romance novel, if you know what I mean, like booktube girlies who just get the cute romance novels. And don't get me wrong, like I love like the deeper parts of the book, and there was one specific Colleen Hoover book, which I'll get to, that had like some deeper meanings and emotional connections, but some of the connection is just a little bit too physical, if you know what I mean, that it takes away from the emotional connection of the book. Anyways, like I said, this follows Lily, and it follows her relationship with Ryle. And by the way, the trigger warnings in this book is abuse and things like that, so that was kind of what we were following with her relationship. But then it also went back onto her relationship with her childhood friend named Atlas, who was her childhood relationship, and they ended up coming back together and meeting each other again after getting separated. So like I said, I gave it a 3 stars just because it was so overly hyped to me, and I just didn't really connect with the story. And also, like I said, I was talking about Ellen letters. In the story, she was a big fan of Ellen DeGeneres, and she was writing letters to Ellen, and you basically had to read all of her letters throughout the story, which you got by like the second letter, and then it ended up getting pretty repetitive, and they were very long. And like, it gets to a point where I don't like books where if you're waiting for a cliffhanger and then you need to go back to their childhood and like read something. I don't like those kind of books, so that's kind of what irritated me about this book. And so my rating system, by the way, I'll let you know now, since we're on the first book. 1 to 2 is just like a bad book for me. 3 is like, it's okay. 3.5. I try my best not to do like the 0.75, 0.8, whatever. I have done it, so there are going to be a couple in here that I have done it with, just because they're so on the line. But I try to always keep, if I'm going to do like a little addition, is like a 0.5, but some of them are like a 0.9. But that is my rating, so I'll go again. So 1 to 2 is it's really bad, like I would not read it again, probably won't buy a trophy of it. 3 is it's okay. 4 or any range of 4, 4.5, 4 point whatever, is like a good book to me. Like if it's in the 4, it's a good book. If it's a 5, it's unforgettable. It's unforgettable. I'm thinking about it constantly. It's going to be a reread, and I'm going to recommend it to you. A 4 I might recommend to you too, but a 5 is like, you have to read this book. So that's kind of like my rating system. 5s I don't hand out lightly. 5s I have to be thinking about constantly after reading it. So that's kind of like the range. So 3s aren't even like that terrible. It's just like, oh, like it was okay. 1s and 2s are like, no, I'm probably not gonna recommend it. So that was my first Colleen Hoover book that I read, and that was my thoughts on that. If you haven't read many Colleen Hoover books, I recommend you form your own opinion on it. It's so funny now because they were viral before, and now people like all of a sudden have drifted away from her books, and it's like, oh, that was a phase and now we have to get out of it. So I don't know, you have to form your own opinion on what books you like. If you like romance books, you have to figure out what kind of romance you like. I actually feel like I've gravitated towards YA, which is kind of funny because I thought I would like regular like adult romance books, but I haven't also read enough to figure out what exactly I like. But I also do really like YA books, so all of Colleen Hoover's books so far has been adults. Moving on to the next book that I read, which was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is a thriller. I gave this book a 4.8. So like I said, this is like one of those ones where I gave like a 0.8, which I try not to do too much, but sometimes I will do it. But by the way, on Goodreads, they don't allow you to do that. They only give you like full stars, so I just type it in my review. And let me read my review. This is one of the best thriller books I've read. The ups and downs and the mixtures of romance and thriller was amazing. I absolutely love the writing style. This was finally a book that took me a while to predict what was going to happen next. The only reason that it wasn't a 5-star for me was because I'm not the biggest fan of multiple POVs or point of view. With that being said, Frida did a wonderful job incorporating multiple perspectives without it being too overwhelming. Also, in my opinion, like most books, the ending could have been stronger, but I feel feel like most books end somewhat abruptly. Overall, one of my faves, and highly recommend this author and book. So this book is also becoming a movie. It has 3 books: The Housemaid, The Housemaid's Secret, and The Housemaid is Watching. So I haven't read the second one or the third one, but I don't think you have to either. This one follows a girl named Millie, and Millie is hired as a housemaid for a family with a woman named Nina Winchester and then her husband Andrew Winchester. And then I think they have a daughter too. I forgot what her name was. Or Nina has a daughter. When she goes into the house, Nina seems like kind of crazy, like kind of psycho, and she'll like make a mess and tell Millie to clean it up, and then tell her, like scream at her or like tell her that she's taking her stuff. And Millie kind of started getting close to Andrew, but as she gets there longer, and also by the way, she's a live-in housemaid, so she lives upstairs in this small room, and she starts noticing like these small things that uncover some weird things in the house. And I don't want to give too much away, but she just starts noticing some weird stuff. And then there's like a twist. With Freida McFadden, there's always a twist, and something happens, and she just learns a lot about this family being their housemaid. So that was that book. I really did enjoy it. I did enjoy the twist. The ending I felt like was kind of abrupt. I feel like sometimes there's like such good books and then it's just like, oh, like the end, instead of like kind of, you know, finishing it off nicely. But other than that happens in a lot of books for me where I feel like that happens. Other than that, it was really good. And the multiple perspectives was just because you saw it from, I think, Millie's perspective, and then you saw it from Nina's perspective and Andrew's, I believe, if I'm correct. I don't know. It was either 2 or 3, which is a little bit back and forth if you're not good at like memorizing all of them, but I have gotten better at reading multiple perspectives. Moving on to 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. 5 stars. 5 stars. If I can give it 10 stars, I'd give it 10 stars. I'm gonna read you my review. I never give 5 stars, but I loved this book. Based on reading the reviews, a lot of people didn't like this book, but I thought it was so cute. I love the relationship between Poppy and Rune. I love how the author showed multiple perspectives without being confusing. The storyline was absolutely adorable and heartwarming, and the writing style was very easy to follow. If you like sweet, young adult romance books, I highly suggest this. Be prepared to do a lot of crying. So it's so funny because these like other 2 books that I just talked to you guys about, I almost like barely remembered the characters even though I like them. I will never forget 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. And so many people didn't like this book. All these comments were like, oh, they're so cringy, blah, blah, it's so cringy. 5 stars, 100%. This followed a girl and a boy, Poppy and Rune, and they lived right next to each other. And it started when they were very, very young. I want to say they had to be like 13 maybe, because it ended up like ending when they were 17. So it followed them for a couple years, and they basically, I don't want to give too much away, but they basically fell in love. They lived right next door. They were high school sweethearts, but then Rune found out that he had to move away, which left them both pretty much devastated, but they knew that it was going to work out long distance because they just were madly in love with each other. But then all of a sudden, Poppy completely stopped all communication with Rune, and he had no idea why. Then fast forwarding 2 years, Rune moved back to the same house right next to Poppy, and then found out that Poppy had just moved back to her house and she wasn't living there all that time either. And then something was uncovered to why she had stopped communicating with him and why she had moved away as well. And it was just heartbreaking, heartwarming, all the things. 5 stars. So I'm currently reading the second book to that. Moving on to the next one, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I gave this one a 4.5. I'll read this review. I really like this book. This was my first murder mystery, and I love the fact that you feel like you are solving the murder with the characters. This book had me stressed in the best way. There were only 2 parts that were somewhat predictable. The only reasons why I didn't give it a 5-star is because I was not a fan of how many characters there were and how it got a little difficult to keep track. I also feel like the answer to the murder was a bit drawn out at one point, where it just could have ended instead of branching off into more parts. Outside of that, it was a great book and I would definitely recommend. So this was definitely an amazing book. It followed a girl named Pip, and she was doing a high school project, and there was a murderer in her town, a girl named Andy Bell, and she basically did her high school project on that, and she solved the murder pretty much. Something about the case or something and the evidence like stood out to her that it wasn't really solved even though the case was closed. So she did all the searching by herself and with a friend, which you'll see in the book like who it is, and she solved the murder. So it was kind of crazy. I really enjoyed it, and I actually like murder mysteries because you feel like you're in the book and you're trying to figure out who did what. so I really enjoyed that. The next one is Never Lie by Frida McFadden, which is another book that it's raging on TikTok and that everyone goes crazy about. I did enjoy it, and I actually might change my rating to a little bit higher, but I feel like it was still overhyped, so I'll read you mine. I honestly didn't know how to feel after reading this book. I thought it was going to be a 5-star, but there are definitely some things that I wish were different. I did really like the setting and the characters. If you like a lot of twists, this book is for you. I personally like some suspense, but do appreciate an aspect of predictability when I'm halfway or more through a book. I truly had no idea what was going to happen until the last page, but not in a good way, which made me feel a bit contradictory to me. You will see what I mean when you read it. There were a lot of moving parts, and I think if there was more focus on some of them, I would have enjoyed it more. However, like I mentioned before, Frida does a wonderful job with multiple perspectives, and her writing is very easy to understand. So this book follows a couple, Trisha and Ethan, and they're house hunting, and they went to go visit this one house that was very far, and they basically took a road trip there, but it was a snowstorm and their realtor never showed up, and the house they were visiting was a old psychologist's house that had died, pretty much. It was like all over the news that she had died, and so they basically get stuck in this house and they have to stay over for a couple nights, and they end up like uncovering a bunch of stuff about this psychologist, the house that they're staying in, and like a bunch of just like crazy stuff happens while they're there, and they can't leave because they're snowed in. So crazy, lots of twists and turns. Like I said, I like twists, but I also like, if I'm basically at the end of the book, I don't want to completely turn where it doesn't make any sense, and in this book, the ending to me didn't make any sense. And it was like, I saw that it was trying to be a drastic difference, but it was so drastic that I almost felt like I wasted my time reading it. But I did also love the setting, the characters, and just like that book sounds so interesting to me. Like, oh, getting snowed in a house, like that sounds so interesting. So I still gave it a 3.5. Then moving on to All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I gave this book a 3.5 star. This was the last book that I read by Colleen Hoover, and I'll read you my review. I definitely enjoyed this book and found it heartwarming. I love the overall message of the book and the perspective on the hardship in marriage. My favorite part of Graham's letters towards the end. My favorite part was Graham's letters towards the end. However, this is my second Colleen Hoover book, and I can say it will probably be my last. Both this one and the book I read were good, but don't leave me with a desire to read any more of her books. There's a lot of maturity and trigger warnings in this book, as well as It Ends With Us, which was the first book I read, and that seems to translate through most of her writing. The maturity was very heavy, which for me actually took away from the emotional romance connection for most of the book, and the focal point became the physical connection. On a positive note, I love how the writing style was in the book. It was extremely easy to understand and is a quick read for people that like short chapters, which seems to be similar in most of her books. So I liked the book a lot, like I said, but for me, when books get a little bit too spicy, they take away from the cuteness of the romance novel, and it's not even like as cute anymore. Like I said, my favorite part of the book was actually Graham's letters. It was Quinn and Graham, who is a married couple, and they go through like different hardships in their marriage, and the trigger warning in this book is actually infertility. So that's kind of what is going on in this book. But yeah, the only reason why I'm reading another Colleen Hoover book right now is because it's a thriller. So Verity, I heard it's very, very good because it's one of her only thrillers that she did. So I am interested to see how she changes in a thriller book, how her writing changes in a thriller book. And if I don't like that, then I have to say goodbye to Coho. That is what I thought of All Your Perfects. And then the last book that I read, which was an audiobook, that's why it's not on my shelf, it's not on my shelf over here, is The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. I gave this book a 4.5. I actually really, really enjoyed this book, and I listened to it as an audiobook, and it was much more fun and more like intriguing to listen to it with the different voices. And I'll read you my review. I said, this was one of my favorite Frida McFadden books. The twist was completely unexpected. I really like how she writes in a way that she wants the reader to think, and no matter how much you try to come up with your own scenarios, it's still exactly what she wants you to think. I didn't love the ending, and that's why it wasn't a 5-star. I'm a sucker for a happy/resolved ending, and it was left a little disturbing. Overall, it was a really good and easy read. So this follows a girl named Sydney, and like her friends too, but mostly Sydney. She's having terrible luck with like dating men, so she's trying to like kind of go out on more dates and things like that because she's getting older. Like, she's not getting older, but she's kind of at the point where she wants to get married, have kids. She's in her 30s, and she just feels like if she doesn't, you know, lock it down now, she doesn't know when it's gonna happen. So she ends up finding the absolute perfect guy that she ends up bumping into on one of her terrible dates, and then it ends up unraveling that some stuff has happened, and it actually goes into multiple perspectives again, like Frida always does, past as well, from his perspective and from hers, and I really enjoyed both of it, but the twist was pretty cool. So I gave that a 4.5, and that is all of my book recommendations for you guys in episode 1 of book recommendations. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and comment down below if you want more book videos from me, if this is something that you guys like on this channel. I'm still definitely gonna film more because I just love books now, but I'm just so happy to be filming book videos and have my bookshelf all set up now. And yeah, so I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I think this is where I'm going to end it. Comment down below any book recommendations you guys have for each other and for me, or if you want me to read something and then, you know, rate it in another video. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube Music, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.